In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to get your digital images to look like film, or at least how I do it anyway. I'm going to be talking about what camera and lens combinations can potentially give you the best results, and I'm even going to walk you through step by step exactly what I do during post-processing to best match my digital images to the look of film. Now at the end of the video, I'm also going to be talking about a few, we'll call them tips, and giving away a couple of little freebies, and I'm actually also going to be doing a free film camera giveaway. So make sure you stick around to the end for that. But yeah, first up, let's talk about gear. So first and foremost, if you're trying to get your digital images to look like film, what matters most is what you're actually taking those images with. Newer cameras and lenses these days can be overly sharp and super clinical, and film is anything but that. So if you're actually trying to achieve that sort of softer, older vintage look, you're actually best off using softer, older vintage lenses. A great way to achieve that these days is to shoot with things like mirrorless cameras like Fuji and Sony, etc., because you can actually adapt these lenses to use straight on these mirrorless bodies. And with things like focus peaking to help you manually focus, you can still get super sharp results, and it's a doddle to use, in all honesty. Personally, I shoot with a Fujifilm GFX 50R, which is actually a digital medium format camera, and I've adapted an older Voigtlander Nocton 58mm f1.4 lens to use on that. Now essentially what that has given me is the 35mm equivalent of something like a 40 to 45mm f1.1 lens. So to put that in relation to film, say the Pentax 6.7 with the 105mm f2.4 lens in relation to 35mm gives you something like 52mm f1.1. So although I'm getting a wider sort of focal length, I'm actually still getting that f1.1. And if you're trying to match film, especially medium format film, what you definitely want is that bokeh, that separation, and that depth of field. So it's as close as I've been able to get. And I've recently actually picked up the Moment Cinebloom filter, which I did a video for recently. I'll link above if you haven't seen that. But the filter, matched with the GFX, matched with the Voigtlander lens, is hands down the closest I've ever been able to get to matching medium format film with digital. I'm not going to show any samples for now because I'm actually going to do a video on that entirely by itself next week or something like that. So if you want to see some samples, I'm afraid you're going to have to subscribe and wait for that video. Now obviously I'm fully aware that not everyone can afford to spend thousands of pounds on digital medium format setups. Like Christ, I couldn't when I bought the camera, but I knew I wanted it. So you don't actually have to do that. You know, like I said, you can buy these older vintage lenses and use them on your mirrorless bodies. There's actually a few companies like Chinese companies and stuff these days that are actually making newer lenses that are purposely made to achieve that older, softer filmic look. So for example, there's a Chinese company called 7 Artisans, and they make a few lenses for mirrorless cameras. I think they've got like a 50mm f1.1 lens. There's another Chinese company called Metacon. They make a lens for the GFX, but they also make a lens for Sony and Fuji, which is 50mm f0.95. And there's loads of these kind of Chinese companies that are making these softer lenses that are giving you this super shallow depth of field, which is going to help you drastically in, you know, achieving that filmic look with your digital cameras. There's actually, I'm not on Facebook anymore, there was a Facebook group that I was a part of called the Archetype Process Community. They used to be called ClickMatch. This is basically, they make film emulation profiles, which is what I'm going to be talking about next. In how I edit the images, but they have a Facebook group called the Archetype Process Community, which was one of the best Facebook groups I was a part of for learning what other people are doing in terms of shooting digital and getting it to match their film. So if you're seriously interested in this, I definitely recommend joining that group and, you know, scroll through the previous posts and stuff and just see what people are doing in terms of matching film to digital. Plenty of people posting side by sides all the time, like this was taken with, you know, say the Contax 645 and the 80mm, and this was taken with this digital setup and putting the pictures side by side, and honestly you cannot tell the difference. So it's definitely possible in this day and age to match the film look with digital. You just need to figure out which gear you're going to use to match that. But that takes us nicely into the next segment of the video actually, where I'm now going to set up my laptop and I'm going to talk to you about how I edit the images. So let's talk about editing. Right, so I'm just in my Lightroom now, and I'm just quickly going to edit through a couple of images, just kind of to show you step by step what I would do to a digital RAW file to try and get it to look as close as I could to like an actual film scan. So the main thing, obviously, I just mentioned the archetype process community group. Those are film emulation profiles, and they are what I use and what a lot of people I know that use to try and get as close to matching film as possible. They are probably the best film emulation profile or preset or whatever on the market at the moment, hands down. So they do a Kodak pack, a Fuji pack and a monochrome pack. I do happen to own all the packs and I would recommend all of them. I'm not being sponsored or anything, they are just really good for matching film. So if you come up to your profiles when you've got them, what you'll see is that you've got with a Fuji pack you've got normal, push 1, push 2. All of them are just normal, push 1, push 2. So the colours would change depending on whether you were wanting that pushed film look. And then within the individual packs, you've actually also got not only the film stocks, so Ektar, Portra 160, Portra 400, Portra 800, etc. But you've also got whether that was scanned on a Frontier scanner or a Noritsu scanner, because you get very different colours depending on the different film scanners. And then you've also got whether it was exposed at box speed, +1 or +2. So that's whether you're overexposing it by 1 stop or 2 stops. So for example, a lot of people that shoot, say, Fuji 400H, especially on a sunny day, they would rate that at 100 instead of 400. Ergo, you're exposing it over by 2 stops. So if you wanted that scanned on a Frontier scanner, you'd pick this one, which is Fuji Pro 400H, Frontier scanner, normal, so not pushed, but exposed +2, so overexposed by 2 stops. Obviously, the choices within here are endless, so I would recommend, depending on what film stocks you do usually use and how you usually rate them, to just favourite ones from the pack, like click the star and favourite them, and then when you click on the profile within the basic panel, you've got your favourites there. So enough yabbering, we'll quickly edit this one. So this is a nice wedding couple from a vineyard wedding I did last year, I think. But for example, we were talking about Pro 400H, let's go for that. So Pro 400H, Frontier scanner, +2. So this is as if I was shooting Fuji 400H and I rated it at 100. So you apply the profile and all that does is that will change the colours, the underlying colours of the image to match that of that film stock. And then you would edit from there. So what I would do is, obviously I've overexposed it by 2 stops, so I want to bring the exposure right up as if I did overexpose that film by 2 stops. Somewhere around there. I'm just kind of going through this real quickly, okay? And then film obviously has amazing highlight retention. So film's really great for saving the details in the highlights, whereas digital is the complete opposite. It saves detail within the shadows. So what they usually say, or what I would say, is if you're shooting film, always aim or err on the caution of overexposure. If you're shooting digital, always err on the caution of underexposure to save your highlights. So with this one, I would have underexposed it a little bit just to save the detail in the sky. So now I've got the profile on there. Basically move your way down the basic panel, apply the profile, come to the temp and tint, and get the white balance to a level where you want it to be. It was pretty much there already, to be honest with you. Might bring the pink up a bit and warm it up a little bit, but let's go for this quick so I'm not yabbering too long. And then once you've got exposure and temperature to where you want, straight away, because I want it to look like film, bring the highlights all the way down. You want it to look like film would do. How film would behave is it would retain all that detail within the sky. So I'm bringing the highlights down, I'm bringing some of the whites down, and then bringing some of the shadows up a bit. So the texture and the dehaze are already at a level where I want them to be. Basically what I would always do is I would bring the clarity down, because film has a softness to it. So I'd bring the clarity down to sort of between -5, -10, but I bring the texture up between +15, +20, because what the texture does, if it gives detail back within people's like hair and eyes and skin and stuff like that, as opposed to the whole overall image. And then dehaze, just because it's bright, I've got it on sort of +10, +15, again, just to bring some more of these details back. I've worked my way down. I'm happy with what I've got on the basic panel. Again, I would probably do a little bit more tweaking, but just so we get this quick, I'd now pop over to what I've got saved up here are my quick fixes. F for fix are things like my grain. So obviously you can do this all in the basic panel, pop down to grade to where you want it to be, but I've just saved one for 35mm grain and one for 120 grain. And all these are just like little grain things that I've got to try and match as best I could to film scans that I've actually had. So like the 35mm grain would be as close as I could get it to what I've seen from like my scans, and 120 grain from what I've seen from my 120 grain scans. So with this one, I'm going to keep it as if it was 35mm, and I'm going to apply some 35mm grain to it. To be honest with you, I'm happy with that image as it is. I think personally that looks pretty close to as if it was shot on 35mm with Fuji 400H. This is just some rings again from their wedding day. So I've got these presets saved on the side of here, like Fuji A-Cross, Fuji Pro 400H, Kodak, all the different Kodak packs and stuff like that. All of these are based just from the profiles, where I've applied the profile and done a few minor tweaks and just saved it as a preset. All of them barring the Kodak Ultramax one, which is one that I've made myself after I shot a few rolls of Ultramax recently when I was away with a Leica M6, and I love the colour so much. I basically just went through these scans and loads of different digital images to try and match that sort of colour as best I could. This is one of the freebies that I'll be giving away at the end of the video, is this actual preset that I've made myself. Nothing to do with the archetype process or anything, it's just one of mine, and yeah, I'm super happy with how it came out, so I thought I'd give it to you guys. So this wedding picture, quite quick. I'd probably do it in black and white. It's just some rings, put on Fuji A-Cross or something like that, some 35mm grain, and then I'd maybe crop it. So we'll keep it 6x4 because we're going for 35mm, and I'll just kind of crop it in a little bit, something like that. But aspect ratios are super important as well when you're thinking about trying to match your film, your digital to film, because obviously when you're shooting something like 35mm, they're all going to be 6x4 negatives. When you're shooting medium format, they're going to come out like 8x10 photos and stuff like that. So you've really got to think about cropping it to match film. If I want this to look like 35mm film, I need it to be that sort of 6x4 ratio. If I want an image to look like it was medium format film, I kind of need it to be like 8x10 ratio. Okay, so this is just they were a group of, I think they're estate agents. They wanted some like lifestyle shots and some headshots and stuff for the website. So this is just a group shot of them. So before I even put a profile or anything on, I want this to look like medium format film. So what I would then do is crop it to 8x10, so I can get it to look like it was shot on medium format film. So then I would pick my profile. Instead of going over here, I'm just going to go to one of the short things I've saved because it'll be a bit quicker. So say Ectar 800. I'll tell you what, let's use Ultramax on this one just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about with the vibe on it. So I'll turn that up. This was shot with the GFX and the 58mm, so it's got a bit of a vignette to it. So I'll click on that to fix it. And then once your profile's on, just fix your white balance, get it to kind of a level that you want it to be. Like I say, this has got my saves on it automatically, so highlights down, shadows up a bit, keep the whites down for this one actually, blacks down, texture up, clarity down, a bit of dehaze, and that's kind of pretty much all I do. I'll put some 120 grain on it because I want it to look like 120mm film. So this is a photo of a model, Sophie, that I took. Again, this was digital, taken with a GFX and Voigtlander 58mm. So we'll go from scratch from this one. So let's say it was sunset, so maybe I wanted to shoot on a higher ISO film, so we'll go Portra 800 rated at box speed. We'll go with this one. So apply the profile, increase the exposure to a level where you kind of want to get it to, and then I'll apply the vignette fix for the GFX. Now I want this to look like I shot it on medium format film, so what I would do is crop it to 8x10, get that face in the middle of that. So now instantly the aspect ratio is helping it to look a little bit more like film. Bring down the highlights, bring down the whites, increase the shadows a wee bit. I don't think I need any more sort of blackness or contrast in there. I think that's okay as it is. Bring down the clarity. I'd edit it to, again, I'm doing this quick because I don't want to beat on too much about this, but I apply it to somewhere like there. Now, because it's shot in low light, I might put some 35mm grain on there and just bring it back a tiny little bit. So look at that. So yeah, I mean, if you look at the grain and the softness to it and the colours and everything, like if someone had posted this and said this was shot with, you know, Pentax 6.7 or something like that, I would be happy to believe that that was the case. I've also, quickly worth mentioning, got these light leaks from Archipelago. I can never say that word. But yeah, a guy named Liam Rimington that I know, he created these light leaks for them and they now sell them. But yeah, basically you can do these things in kind of like Photoshop and stuff, but they're just nice quick fixes that you can use within Lightroom. All they do is they apply like gradient and radial filters and stuff with certain exposures and lights and colors to make it look like you've put like a film light leak on the image. Now, you wouldn't want to use something like this all the time. It would be a bit over the top and over the kill, but I think occasionally, if you're trying to edit a digital image to look like film and you want to just give it that little something extra, something like one of these light leaks can really help it pop. They do go super slow if you're thinking about downloading these when you're using them within Lightroom, just because they take ages to load. But yeah, just to kind of give you like a little idea, I'll wait for one of these to load. You see what I mean? They're all of that kind of variation. I'm not going to go through all of them, but they'll just apply these little sort of like leaks and pretend like leaks and burns, film burns and stuff like that to your images. And if you want to give it that kind of finesse, something like that will definitely add to it. But yeah, I'll stop rabbiting on. Let's go back to me, and I'm just going to quickly talk to you about these little freebies and extras and stuff, and obviously the film camera giveaway. So I'm just going to finish off this video real quick with a couple of little tips slash freebies that may or may not be of some use to you. Tip number one. So those little segments in my videos where it came up saying gear and editing and stuff like that, that was some free stock footage that I downloaded from a website called pexels.com, P-E-X-E-L-S.com. Now, you may or may not already be aware of it, but I know there's a lot of these like big YouTubers that are sponsored by companies like Storyblocks, where you can get some stock footage, but it's paid subscription, or Shutterstock and stuff like that, again, where you pay for the individual videos and photos. But this website is 100% completely free. Plenty of decent free stock photos, free stock footage that you don't pay a penny for. You can choose to donate to the people that have uploaded it, but you don't have to. It is just 100% completely free. And there's some decent stuff on there too. Tip number two. So obviously we've been talking about these film emulation profiles, and you know, I've used plenty of presets in the past. If you're new to photography as well, presets are a great way into starting to try and develop your style and just figure out, you know, how each section of the develop module actually works by seeing what they change. So they're definitely of some use, and I know I've spent hundreds, if not thousands of pounds in the past on various different presets, and there are some companies out there that potentially just kind of like alter an existing preset and release a new pack every 2 months under a different name, which I don't agree with. It's just a money-making scheme, but nonetheless, there is a website called freepreset.net, and if a preset pack or something like that is older than a few months old, you will no doubt find it on there. Now, I'm not going to name any names of what's on there, and there's obviously a certain morality kind of issue to this. You know, if you feel that you can afford these things, then certainly go to the main company and pay them for their time and effort for making these things. But if, like me, you are skint as shit and you know you can't afford to keep wasting loads of money on presets, definitely check out freepreset.net. Type in what you're looking for in the search bar and it will no doubt come out, and you will be able to download them for free of charge. Also, so obviously when I was editing there, I was talking about my Kodak Ultramax preset that I made just because I shot a few rolls. I love the look, so I tried to match it up. I'm going to give you that for free if you're interested, if you like the look at that. I've uploaded that and my grain tools to a Dropbox link, and you can download that from the link that's in the description, completely free. That's yours as a gift from me to you. Now, lastly, as if that wasn't enough, I'm going to be giving away this. This is an Olympus OM10 and it comes with the 50mm f1.8 lens. It is in pristine condition. It's literally sat in a box its whole life pretty much, and I've put a couple of rolls through it and tested in it, and it works beautifully. But basically this was gifted to me by my father-in-law, who got it off someone at work, I believe, who didn't want it anymore. Now I've already got a Minolta X700 with a couple of lenses that is essentially the same but slightly better, and I don't need two 35mm cameras. I did say at the start of the year I set myself a goal to hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and if I did, I'd do a giveaway, and I have. It's now October and I've hit 1,000 subscribers, and honestly just want to say thanks so much to everyone who's clicked that subscribe button, and thanks for watching my videos. I do really appreciate it. So yeah, this could potentially be yours. I will ship it anywhere in the world, wherever the hell you are. All you've got to do to enter is go to my Instagram account. I've shared a post about this. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, like the post, tag 3 friends, and share the post to your story. Why not? We'll get this shared all around, and then I will pick the winner in a week's time and announce it on my Instagram and on another YouTube video. But yeah, that is it. I do believe I've rambled on for long enough. Thanks so much again for all your support. Do make sure you enter, and I hope you're lucky enough to win it. Thanks again. See you guys soon.